The screen slowly fades in. It's early morning in a quiet New Jersey suburb, sometime in the year 1952. The sun hasn't fully climbed the sky yet, but a soft silver glow spills across rows of neat white houses, each with perfectly trimmed lawns that look like they've been painted into the landscape. In the distance, the faint rumble of a steam locomotive rolls over the rails, shaking the air with a nostalgic echo only the 1950s could create. This neighborhood is peaceful, uniform, and unmistakably American, an iconic symbol of post-World War II prosperity. And in the middle of this calm, picture-perfect world stands the house where we'll be spending an entire day. The home of the Mitchell family, a family of four, ordinary by the standards of the time, yet the perfect lens through which we can relive the authentic, everyday life of America in the early 1950s. George Mitchell, 38, is the father. A factory worker at an electronics plant, George is the picture of a post-war American man-gray suit, fedora hat, polished shoes, and cigarettes without filters tucked in his shirt pocket. He's a veteran of World War II. He made it home safely. Yet the distant shadows of the war still appear in his eyes when no one is looking. His days begin early 6:30 a.m., sharp built upon discipline, routine, and the belief that America's future lies in technology and mass production. Helen Mitchell, 33, is the mother. A full-time homemaker, she embodies the highly idealized 1950s housewife floral dress, soft curls, a spotless apron, and classic red lipstick. Her daily responsibilities follow a familiar rhythm: cleaning, cooking, laundry, organizing the home, managing the children, and making sure everything runs with perfect order. Her kingdom is the home, as she rules it with warmth, precision, and love. Tommy, age 10, is the big brother, a boy obsessed with comic books, radio adventure shows like The Lone Ranger, and long afternoons riding his bicycle with neighborhood kids. If he's not at school, he's outside. Linda, age 6, is the little sister, sweet, curious, and always holding a fabric doll under her arm. She loves early morning cartoons on their small black and white television and enjoys helping her mother in the kitchen. Our story begins at 5:45 a.m. The house is quiet. Helen is the first one awake because in 1952, being a homemaker meant your day started long before everyone else's. She moves gently through the dim kitchen, turning on her brand new electric coffee percolator, an appliance still considered a symbol of modern luxury. As the machine begins bubbling softly, the warm scent of fresh coffee fills the room, mixing with the faint crackle of ice shifting inside the family's old metal refrigerator. The camera glides slowly through the house, past the living room, where a wooden radio sits like a centerpiece of the home, down the hallway, where golden morning light touches the edges of the curtains, and finally toward the bedrooms, where the rest of the family still sleeps. This is where our journey begins. A full, unfiltered day in the life of an American family in 1952. A day that will start with freshly brewed coffee and end with the family gathered around their small 12-inch television, watching the world change one broadcast at a time. The kitchen is now fully awake. Helen places plates, silverware, and neatly folded cloth napkins on the small round breakfast table. The percolator clicks softly, signaling the coffee is ready. A comforting aroma spreads through the house like an invitation to start the day. At 6:15 a.m., George appears in the doorway, still adjusting his tie. His footsteps are heavy. Familiar routine has shaped them over the years. "Morning, Helen," he mutters with a half-smile, still shaking off sleep. Coffee first, always. He picks up the thick ceramic mug waiting for him, the same mug he has used every morning since 1949. As he takes his first sip, the tension in his shoulders melts just a little. Helen watches him with quiet satisfaction. This moment, simple as it seems, is her favorite part of the day. Soon, the upstairs hallway comes to life. Tommy thunders down the wooden stairs, still buttoning his shirt, his hair sticking up in every direction. Behind him, little Linda steps carefully, holding the banister, her doll tucked under her arm, like it might fall if she breathes too fast. Helen serves a classic 1952 breakfast: scrambled eggs cooked in butter, toast with homemade strawberry jam, and a small stack of bacon that crackles when she sets it down. For the kids, 2 glasses of cold milk. For George, another cup of coffee. For herself, something small. Homemakers rarely sat down long enough to eat properly. While they eat, the living room radio hums softly in the background, tuned to the morning news. A cheerful male announcer delivers national updates in a distinct mid-century American tone, half optimism, half seriousness. The family listens in fragments. General Eisenhower's growing popularity. New automobiles expected later this year. Television sales skyrocketing across the country. Tommy perks up. Dad, can we get a bigger TV? The Johnsons have one. George folds his newspaper. We'll see, champ. Maybe next year. Linda swings her legs under the chair, humming a tune she heard on the radio the night before. Helen glances at the clock. All right, kids. Time to get ready. The kitchen erupts into the familiar chaos of a 1950s. School morning Tommy, rushing to find his lunchbox decorated with a cowboy drawing. Linda searching for her pink hair ribbon. Helen tying shoelaces and smoothing collars with the precision of someone who has done this hundreds of times. George grabs his fedora from the coat rack and slips into his light gray overcoat. He kisses Helen on the cheek quickly, habitually, and heads toward the front door. I'll be home around 6, he calls out. The door closes with a soft thud. Outside, his 1951 Chevrolet waits in the driveway, gleaming in the cold morning air. He starts the engine, a deep rumble filling the quiet street, and drives off toward the factory as the sky brightens. Meanwhile, Helen helps the kids put on their coats. They step outside into the crisp morning, lunchboxes in hand. A yellow school bus approaches, its engine growling as it stops in front of the house. Bye, Mommy, they shout in unison. Helen waves as the bus pulls away, disappearing down the long suburban road. And suddenly, the house is quiet again. Too quiet. Exactly the way it usually is at 8:00 a.m. in 1952. The quiet settles over the house like a soft blanket. Helen stands in the doorway for a moment after the kids leave, watching the school bus shrink into the horizon. The silence that follows is familiar, not lonely, not heavy, just the natural pause before her day officially begins. She closes the door gently. Back inside, the morning sun has finally filled the home with warm light. The kitchen looks like a battlefield after breakfast. Plates stacked in the sink, crumbs on the table, a pan still cooling on the stove. But to Helen, this isn't chaos, it's routine. She rolls up her sleeves, tightens her apron, and starts with the dishes. There's no dishwasher, at least, not yet. In 1952, the newest dishwashers were expensive luxuries, more common in magazine ads than real homes. So Helen scrubs by hand, warm water steaming gently as she washes each plate with practiced precision. The radio in the living room plays her favorite morning program, a friendly female host discussing new household tips, recipes, and social news from around the country. The soft hum of the radio fills the house, keeping Helen company as she cleans the countertops and wipes down the kitchen table. Next on her list, laundry. She carries a basket of clothes to the basement, where the washing machine, a bulky, top-loading model with chrome knobs, waits like a mechanical beast from a bygone era. She loads the clothes, turns the dial, and the machine begins to shake rhythmically, rattling the concrete floor. Dryers exist in 1952, but they're not common. So Helen will hang most of the clothes outside later, letting the suburban breeze do the rest. By 10 a.m., she's ready for her next task, shopping. She changes into a neat dress, checks her lipstick in the mirror, grabs her purse, and steps outside. The sun is bright now, and the neighborhood is buzzing with quiet daytime life, postmen delivering mail, milkmen finishing their routes, and homemakers exchanging friendly waves as they head to town. Helen walks to her 1949 Studebaker, opens the door, and slides behind the wheel. The engine sputters to life, and she drives toward the town center rows of small shops, a butcher, a bakery, and a corner market that sells everything from canned vegetables to shiny new kitchen gadgets. Inside the grocery store, she moves with effortless familiarity. A carton of eggs, fresh bread, a tin of cocoa powder, flour, sugar, 2 bottles of cola for the kids. Shopping in 1952 isn't rushed, it's social. People greet each other by name, chat about local news, and share recipes in the aisles. Helen even stops to talk with Mrs. Porter, her friendly neighbor who's planning a church bake sale. When she returns home, the clock is nearing noon. She puts the groceries away, opens a window to let in the cool autumn air, and finally sits down for a few minutes with a simple lunch. A ham sandwich, a glass of milk, and her favorite magazine, Ladies' Home Journal. Flipping through the glossy pages, she pauses at an article titled, "The Ideal American Home." The pictures show smiling families, spotless kitchens, and perfectly dressed housewives, images that look very much like her own life, yet somehow more polished, more controlled, more dreamlike. Helen sighs softly, not out of sadness, but out of understanding. She knows these magazines are half fantasy, half reality. Still, it's nice to believe in the dream of the perfect home, even if only for a moment. Before she can finish her sandwich, the washing machine's buzzer rings loudly from the basement. Lunch break is over. Time to hang the clothes outside. She steps into the backyard, hands still smelling of soap and fabric softener. The wind is cool, rustling the laundry lines as she clips shirts, dresses, and sheets one by one. The backyard becomes a sea of white cloth, floating gently under the early afternoon sun. This is her world, structured, quiet, steady. And in 1952, this was the rhythm of millions of American households. The early afternoon sun hangs high over the neighborhood as Helen finishes the last of the laundry, the white sheets now fluttering in the backyard like flags of a peaceful kingdom. She steps inside, washes her hands, and checks the clock on the kitchen wall. 2:45 p.m., almost time. At 3:05 p.m., the familiar groan of the school bus echoes down the street. Helen walks to the front window, just in time to see Tommy and Linda hopping off the bus, their backpacks bouncing behind them. The kids burst through the front door a moment later. "We're home," Tommy shouts. Linda says, proudly holding up a crayon drawing of a house with an oversized sun smiling in the corner. Helen kneels and admires the picture, giving Linda a warm hug before sending both kids to wash their hands. For the next hour, Tommy dumps his comic books onto the living room floor, flipping through pages filled with superheroes and dramatic black and white panels. Linda sits at the kitchen table, coloring quietly, humming the same tune from earlier. Helen prepares a simple after-school snack, peanut butter sandwiches and 2 small glasses of cola. The kids devour them like they haven't eaten in days. At 4 p.m., the neighborhood springs to life. Kids spill out onto the sidewalks. Bicycles race down the street. Jump ropes slap against driveways. Mothers sit on porches, chatting as they watch the little ones play. Tommy joins a group of boys in a spirited game of stickball in the cul-de-sac. The sound of the wooden bat hitting the ball echoes across the street as parents occasionally call, "Not too close to the cars." Linda, meanwhile, runs across the lawn to join her best friend Maggie. They play with dolls under the shade of a tall oak tree, trading stories about school and imaginary kingdoms where dolls are queens and teacups are treasure chests. The sun begins its slow descent, painting the sky in shades of soft orange and pale gold. Inside the house, Helen starts preparing dinner. She peels potatoes with quick, practiced movements. A pot roast simmers on the stove, filling the house with a warm, savory aroma that drifts through every room. She sets the table with care plates, silverware, cloth napkins, and the family's good water glasses. Dinner, a moment when the entire family gathers, no matter how hectic the day has been. At 5:45 p.m., George's car turns into the driveway. The rumble of the engine announces his arrival. The kids scatter Tommy tossing his bat aside, Linda running with her doll bouncing behind her. "Daddy!" they shout as he picks up Linda with one arm and playfully ruffles Tommy's hair. "Anybody miss me today?" "Mom did," Tommy jokes. Inside, George hangs his coat and sets his fedora on the hook by the door. He sits heavily in his favorite armchair, loosening his tie as Helen walks in to greet him. "You look exhausted," she says gently. "Long day at the plant," he replies. "But it's good to be home." For a moment, he closes his eyes, listening to the familiar harmony of domestic noises, the clinking of dishes, the laughter of kids, the soft bubbling of the pot roast on the stove. These sounds anchor him, pulling him out of the world of machines and assembly lines and into the warmth of family life. At 6:10 p.m., dinner is ready. Helen calls everyone to the table. The Mitchells sit together, passing dishes, sharing stories, and laughing, a perfect portrait of an American family in 1952. Outside, the sky dims. Inside, the evening has just begun. Dinner ends with the familiar clinking of silverware and the soft murmur of family conversation fading into comfortable silence. George leans back in his chair, patting his stomach with satisfaction. "That pot roast was perfect, Helen," he says. Helen smiles, collecting plates with graceful efficiency. In the 1950s, clearing the table is a family routine. Tommy stacks the cups. Linda brings napkins to the kitchen, and George pushes in the chairs before stretching his back with a quiet groan. By 7 p.m., the Mitchell home begins its nightly transition. The living room lights dim, the curtains are drawn, and the centerpiece of American evening life flickers to life. A 12-inch black and white Zenith television, glowing like a small window into a bigger world. The warm hum of the TV fills the room, accompanied by the faint smell of heated tubes inside the wooden cabinet. For many families in 1952, owning a TV still feels miraculous, a sign of modernity, prosperity, and the exciting future ahead. The kids slide onto the carpet, sitting cross-legged only a few inches from the screen. George settles into his armchair, pipe in hand. Helen joins them, finally resting after a long day sitting neatly, with her legs tucked to one side on the floral-patterned sofa. The TV program begins. A smooth male announcer's voice fills the room. "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight on Texaco Star Theater." The children instantly recognize the opening tune. Tommy leans forward, eyes wide. Linda clutches her doll, giggling whenever the host makes a silly face. The glow of the TV washes over their faces, soft and ghostly. For a moment, time seems to slow down, as if the outside world has paused to let this family enjoy a rare moment of togetherness. Commercials break up the show, bright, cheerful. Overly optimistic ads featuring shiny refrigerators, new kitchen mixers, and cigarette brands claiming smoothness like silk. Helen studies the appliances with curious interest. George chuckles at the cigarette ads. "It's all the same," he mutters. "They just make it look prettier every year." Halfway through the program, George lifts Linda into his lap, gently bouncing her as she fights off sleep. Tommy leans his head against the sofa, still pretending he's not getting tired. The house outside the living room grows darker, quieter. Only the soft hum of the television and the occasional laugh track fill the space. At 8:15 p.m., Helen glances at the clock. "All right, kids. Time for bed." The predictable protest follows. "Already?" But the show isn't finished. One more minute. But rules are rules, especially in 1952. Bedtime is sacred. Helen guides Linda upstairs, brushing her hair, helping her put on her cotton pajamas patterned with little stars. George walks Tommy to his room, giving him a firm but loving pat on the back before switching off the lamp. "Good night, champ." Tommy mumbles a sleepy, "Good night, Dad," already drifting into dreams of superheroes and Saturday adventures. By 8:45 p.m., the house feels completely different again. Calm, soft, dimly lit by the glow of a single lamp in the living room. Helen returns with a small tray, 2 cups of warm tea, and sits beside George on the sofa. "How was work today?" she asks quietly. George hesitates for a moment. Work in the factory is tiring, loud, repetitive, but he doesn't complain. Not in this era, not in this world where fathers carry burdens silently. "It was fine," he finally says. "Just fine," Helen nods. They sit together in peaceful silence, sipping tea, listening to the low hum of the TV, enjoying the rare stretch of calm before another busy day begins. At 9:30 p.m., George switches off the television. The screen shrinks into a tiny white dot before fading into black. The room grows still. He turns off the living room light, and together they walk upstairs, the old wooden steps creaking gently under their feet. This is how a day ends in America, 1952, with quiet, with routine, with the warm comfort of family, and with the sense, true or imagined, that the world is steady, predictable, and safe. As the house settles into deep sleep, the last thing you hear is the soft tick-tock of the clock in the hallway, counting down the seconds to another day in a decade that would shape the future in ways no one yet understands. The house is dark now. Only the moonlight slips through the curtains, casting soft silver shapes across the wooden floors. The day has fully faded, replaced by a quiet stillness that feels almost sacred. As the camera slowly pulls back from the sleeping home, the neighborhood around it rests under a blanket of deep blue night. The flicker of distant street lamps illuminates the silent roads, the empty sidewalks, and the rows of identical houses where countless families live lives just like the Mitchells. Lives built on routine, on simplicity, on a sense of stability that feels rare in the world of today. In this moment, watching the Mitchell home fall asleep, you can almost hear the heartbeat of 1952 America, steady, hopeful, shaped by dreams of a brighter future. Inside the house, Helen rests quietly beside George. The worries of the day, the laundry, the errands, the endless cycle of housework are gone. George, exhausted from the factory, sleeps deeply, unaware of how much the world will soon change. Technology, culture, society, all racing forward faster than anyone in 1952 could ever imagine. Tommy dreams of comic book heroes leaping across rooftops. Linda sleeps with her doll tucked under her arm, safe in the warmth of childhood innocence. And the house, this modest, ordinary American home, holds their dreams gently, protecting them through the night. As the camera drifts upward, rising above the rooftops and into the starlit sky, a soft narration closes the story. Life in 1952 wasn't perfect. But for millions of families, it was a world built on togetherness, routine, and simple joys. A time when evenings ended beside a glowing television, when neighbors knew each other's names, and when home meant something steady, something safe. The stars shimmer like tiny memories suspended in time. And though the world has changed, these moments remain. Not in photographs, not in old furniture or vintage appliances, but in the stories passed down, in the nostalgia we carry, and in the quiet wish that life could still be this simple. The camera slowly fades to black. A soft hiss of old film grain fills the audio like the ending of a documentary reel from another era. And then the final line. This was a day in 1952 America. A world gone, but never forgotten. Fade out.